Okay, I don't want to get too stuck on the feminism stuff. I know most people are probably here to watch and read about GamerGate,
GamerGate, yes.
but I do think it's important to understand like where you're coming from with this, and for a couple of different reasons. Like, one, why it's something that you felt the need to get involved with, and two, because I feel like I need to do my due diligence, and the anti-GamerGate people and people who are more skeptical of your views, I think that they probably want to hear some pushback and some good pushback, and I want to be very critical in how I interview people.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um, the I was on like Reddit debate communities and stuff, debating Gamergate, and we would often hear, or sometimes hear, from anti-Gamergate people, like, "Hey, look, the Milo guy is a grifter who's just trying to make a name for himself or trying to promote right-wing views or whatever." And then people would also sometimes put you in that camp as well, the anti-Gamergate people. They'd say, "Look, she's someone who's been criticizing feminism for decades, or aspects of feminism, I should say, certain segments of feminism." And she
Right,
also works for the American Enterprise Institute, which is seen by many people as a more conservative leaning think tank.
right. Well, for many years, I was a philosophy professor and have always been a registered Democrat, for better or worse, a sort of a self-hating Democrat. Um, but so I never could take that seriously that I was a right winger. I don't know that you could point to anything in my writing that is sympathetic to right wing, you know, theories and so forth. But that being said, just being a moderate in feminism and calling for a more pragmatic and reasonable approach, people ended up calling me names and pigeonholing me. And so I just have to deal with that. You know, if you don't like the American Enterprise Institute, maybe that's a reason to be skeptical initially. But if I'm citing a study, making an argument, judge it by its merits. You can come in skeptical, but you have to judge what I say in the Factual Feminist and other books and places by the merits of the argument. And I try to be scrupulous as I can. And I would sometimes it would have made my life easier if I could have seen the world the way that you know, a hardline feminist like Catherine McKinnon and Andrea Dworkin and or Anita Sarkeesian. It would have made my life easier. It would have made my mother happier. She was very liberal, my late mother, and was upset that I'd become controversial and appeared to be an anti-feminist and all of that. And I would try very hard to understand their arguments and try to see the world the way they saw it. But then I would just kept running into fallacies that I couldn't ignore. Like, let's take Anita Sarkeesian. I watched her videos, and okay, there were many things that bothered me, but then I realized she was cherry picking. She would show examples of violence against women in videos, which horrifying. But there's far more violence against men, and then you say, well, why should there be any violence at all? Well, there's a lot of violence in movies and novels and entertainment, and we don't have evidence that this is leading to epidemics of crime. One of the things I noticed is that as video game nation was forming, as more and more, mostly young men were playing these games, violence was actually going down, and so was misogyny. I mean, millennials, each generation is less sexist and racist and homophobic than the one that preceded them. And so here we had a generation where, at the time, crime was going down and a lot of unpleasant uh, uh, bigotries seemed to be diminishing, and yet they were blamed for uh, being the cause of these evils. So I just couldn't make sense of it. And but anyway, I don't go in trying to be uh, you know, just for the sake of polemics. I go in to understand, and I really think it'd be a better world if men and women understood one another better. If men and women were less prone to generalize about the other sex or demean the other sex. I think, again, I keep saying that we uh, we need each other. And if men are in trouble, so are women, and vice versa.
Do you think that the issue that people like Anita had with violence against women in games was that women were virtual women, fake women, were harmed in the video games themselves, or was their issue the way that this violence against women specifically was depicted versus the male violence being?
Well, I'm sure she could point to games where almost anyone would just cringe at what they were seeing, and I'm not a fan of those games. I don't understand them. Do I want to censor them? No, because I feel, as I said, I can't watch Quentin Tarantino movies. There's just too much hideous violence. Although I did like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I mean, I admire his movies, but I can't watch them. And so that's what I concluded about the video games, and that she was just being unfair, maybe didn't know that much about them, or was just kind of imposing an ideology. Now, having said that, were there occasions where she made good points? Yes. And I thought it was horrible, the way she was treated by vicious members on the fringe of GamerGate and threats and so forth. At the same time, I was aware that people inside GamerGate, pro GamerGate people, were getting a lot of threats, including women.
Why do you think it is that you have Anita Sarkeesian? She does a Kickstarter for this series. She makes videos about video games. Some of the videos you can like, some of you can dislike, whatever. You can have whatever opinion you want on them. But why do you think it is that this woman, talking about feminism in video games in a very high profile way, did receive so much hate and harassment? Whether that you think that's from Gamergate people or from trolls or from like random gamers on Twitter, why did this happen? Why did it happen to a woman who's talking about feminism in games?
Well, she went into an area that was male dominated and was perceived to being unfair. So a majority of people were just offended and would criticize her in straightforward ways that were within the bounds of civil discourse. But a small percentage just went crazy. And I think that anybody who goes into a field like that, and even a politician or anybody who's become perceived as being polemical and contentious and so forth, you get a lot of pushback. And again, one of the things I noticed when I looked at harassment online, it's just assumed, well, it's women who bear the majority of, getting the threats and the insults. And Pew Research has done studies, I think it's every 2 years, and consistently show that it's men who mainly are primary. It's a small percentage of people who get threats, primarily men. Women get more sexual harassment, and men get more insults. And women react to it with greater sensitivity. Women get very much more upset by it. But overall, if you look at the internet and you look at abuse, you find majority of the targets are males. So I think it was terrible what happened to her, but I think you have to see it, the full picture, that what's terrible is that there's not a lot, but there are threats. There are too much hostility. We all know, but both sexes bear it, and it appears that men bear it, or face it more than women.
Yeah, I was one of the people who made videos criticizing Anita Sarkeesian, and I think that I was like super like polite and nuanced in them. And when she left the space, when she announced that she was going to stop making videos, I even made a video like saying like, "Hey, I wish you luck with your future endeavors. We disagreed on some stuff. Here's
Yeah.
I think that I wish you well." I was like very polite and civil. I disagreed with her like on the. She was saying that I'm not sure you care about this at all, but she this specific instance. But she was talking about um, Alex Vance or Alex, I believe, from Half-Life, and a character from Remember Me. This game I've not played it actually. Not remember. I played Half-Life, of course, but she was saying that why aren't we exploring her ethnic background? But it's like, well, I mean, she's a brown person who happens to be American or French in the case of Remember Me, I believe. Like, we don't know that she identifies as like part of where her ancestors came from. Like we all we know is that she's an American or a French person in the Remember Me case. Like, isn't it kind of like a little bit xenophobic to assume that because because they are of brown skin that they must have some like foreigner identification? That's like one of my critiques I made of her.
Well, do you remember her critique of a game with Bayonetta? Bayonetta was a video with a very powerful but sexualized, sexy protagonist, and she was accusing it of being sexist because it appealed to the male gaze. What she neglected to care about was that first of all, it was I think about a Japanese creator who was a woman, and here's an example of when a distinction between an equality feminist and a victim feminist. She was also offended that the character was sexy. Now, this is a debate within feminism. There are pro-sex feminists and a more puritanical school that doesn't like the sexualization of women. The pro-sex feminists would say that was slut-shaming. Within feminism, they would accuse Anita Sarkeesian of being, hyper puritanical and policing sexuality. And I agree with that. I mean, I don't think that having sexy women in video games is necessarily sexist. And I don't think that, as far as I can tell, most women would care. There's something else I would point out, that in recent decades, we're a society that's grappled with the fact that we were intolerant of homosexuality and of even female sexuality. There was a lot of policing and punishing and double standards. And what I was seeing at the time I was writing about GamerGate is that there was a lot of policing of and disapproval of heterosexual male sexuality. And heterosexual males do enjoy images of beautiful, sexy women, and it was an effort to pathologize male enjoyment of the female form, and I didn't like that kind of policing either. So I'm sort of libertarian about sexuality as long as no one's being harmed. But of course, here's where I differ with someone like Anita Sarkeesian and her followers. She would claim women are harmed, and so. But that depends on an argument about video games leading to antisocial behavior. And I just never thought she made the case. I don't think the previous generation of writers that video games were making people violent, I don't think they made the case. And I don't think the case was made that these games led to violence. But that's a difference between an equality feminist and a victim feminist.